I almost lost everything because of a 5-second decision. It wasn't a gunshot. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad luck. It was just the desire to save time, on a road I didn't know, in the middle of nowhere, when I was already too tired to see the obvious. It was Arizona, a night route, a sealed and closed load, a tall, heavy American truck with a 53-foot trailer. I was driving on my own, paying for diesel, insurance, and overdue installments, as if life were an endless toll. I was calculating everything on the edge. Each unnecessary stop turned into interest, into a phone call, into another sleepless night. That day, I had left a shipping yard near Phoenix too late. The shipper dragged his feet, the paperwork was delayed, and I hit the road with the early morning hours already pulling my eyes downwards. The GPS suggested the main route, perfectly correct. But about 50 minutes from the planned stretch, it recalculated and offered a detour via a secondary highway. Shorter distance, 15 minutes less. I knew that 15 minutes turn into hours when things go wrong. Even so, I turned. Before taking that detour, I was already on autopilot. I had done a quick inspection of the yard, checked the seals, pressed the tires with my foot, looked for leaks, checked the basic lights. But a rushed inspection becomes a charade. I was also fighting with the electronic clock. My ELD showed a tight margin to arrive before the time expired. I could stop, sleep, and start again in the morning. But I was afraid of arriving late, missing the next freight, and turning into a snowball of bills. This fear makes a person call risk a strategy. I had also only filled up with enough fuel. Another smart choice. I knew that that type of secondary road has few rest stops, and when it does, it doesn't always accommodate large trucks or is open all night. But I preferred to save a few dollars and continue. When you're thinking about that kind of economy, any suggestion of a shortcut seems like a solution, not a risk. The asphalt seemed fine at first. Reflective strips appearing and disappearing within the headlights' range. Clear sky, no moon. Stars dry as glass. No cars, no city lights, nothing. I like the silence when I'm resting. Tired, the silence becomes a warning. After a few kilometers, the cell phone signal died. Normal. What wasn't normal was the first sign. It wasn't official, with a standard pole and clean lettering. It was a reflective rectangle attached with cable ties to a crooked pole with "reduce" written in large letters. No speed limit, no road work, no directions. Just the command. I took my foot off the accelerator. A minute later, cones appeared on the right side of the road, spaced too far apart as if someone had thrown them from a truck. The road narrowed and the shoulder practically disappeared. I should have turned back there already. But turning back on that narrow road with a long trailer meant accepting the risk of getting stuck sideways. When I saw the cones, I tried to rationalize. I thought of poorly marked construction, a recent accident, a team that left the job half-finished. But there was a lack of coherence. Construction cones usually come in sequence at regular intervals and are accompanied by a "men working" sign, arrows, and lighting. There, everything was minimal and improvised, as if the objective wasn't to guide, but rather to reduce my speed at a specific point. The most unsettling detail was the absence of tire marks or dust. If a car had stopped there due to a real problem, I would expect to see some movement on the shoulder, some dented area, some kind of skid mark. It was clean asphalt, clean cones, clean silence. A scene set up to appear normal for 2 seconds. I continued. One more stretch, I thought. I always think that, when I shouldn't. The radio was on low. At one point, a quick hissing sound came in, as if someone had pressed and released the button without saying anything. Interference exists, but in that place, with a dead signal and no cities nearby, it sounded wrong. I increased the volume, hoping for a call. Nothing. The road sloped down slightly and the curves became tighter. I saw an amber glow flashing up ahead, low, near the ground. It looked like an emergency light. It was the first human light in over half an hour. I approached and saw a dark pickup truck stopped at an angle, occupying part of the lane. Hazard lights on, dim, almost out of sync. No one visible. I stopped at a safe distance. I didn't turn off the engine. Engine running means air in the brakes, power steering, starting. I didn't open the window either. I looked in the mirrors. I saw movement on the right, near my diesel tank. A flashlight pointing down, not at me. Someone trying to become invisible in the rearview mirror. I saw a second shadow further back, in line with the trailer. It wasn't help. It was work. My hand went straight to the door lock, checking it twice. I turned off the interior lights so it wouldn't turn into an aquarium. I kept only the dashboard lights on minimum. I needed to understand the objective. Cargo theft doesn't start with shouting. It starts with control. They wanted to get me out of the truck or immobilize me. I looked in the mirror and saw the taillight stop near the right front wheel. I felt a sharp tap on the fender, like a test. They were assessing where I would finally stop. That narrow road was the perfect setting. No shoulder, no traffic lights, no witnesses. I didn't honk. Honking conveys panic. I did the opposite. I turned off the headlights for a second and turned them back on. Not to illuminate, to show that I was awake and that I was in control. The shadow near the tank receded. The shadow near the trailer moved back, as if someone had given a signal. The movements were too coordinated for improvisation. Their plan was simple. Force me to stop completely and then get to the cabin with some pretext. I pulled the truck over as far to the left as possible and carefully engaged reverse. Not to go back miles, just to create distance and open up an angle. Reversing slowly, I saw a small widening of the terrain on the right side, as if the rain had eroded part of the shoulder. It wasn't ideal, but it was enough space to go around. My instinct was to just accelerate and be done with it. But they're talking about reckless acceleration. I backed up a little more, positioned the trailer, and then moved forward, veering to the left as far as possible and passing the trailer just inches from the pickup truck. I heard a metallic scraping sound, and my rearview mirror trembled. I didn't stop to check for damage. I just kept going. 2 seconds later, the pickup truck's headlights lit up behind them. They took off too. It wasn't a movie. It was math. My truck doesn't accelerate like a car. My goal wasn't to win. It was to get light, camera, movement, any gas station, any rest area, any connection to a major highway. The pickup truck alternated between low and high beams to blind me through the mirrors. I adjusted the mirrors to reflect less and maintained a constant speed without sudden braking. The radio crackled again, longer, as if trying to simulate an authority's communication, but with cuts and delay. I ignored it. Real authority doesn't need tricks on a dead road. I tried calling 911 just to confirm what I already knew. No service. So I set a timer on the dashboard recorder and started recording vehicle and trip details for myself. If something happened, I'd have the data. I finally saw an official green sign indicating a connection to a larger road in a few kilometers. It was the first time I felt real hope. And hope also creates error. I almost relaxed. They tried a maneuver to force me to brake hard near a curve, but I held onto the engine brake and kept the vehicle stable. I didn't give them the chaos. When I reached the main road, I saw distant lights, cars, and a 24-hour gas station. I didn't stop at the first corner. I pulled into the more illuminated area, where there were trucks and cameras, and parked so that the back of the car was visible. Only then did I turn off the engine. My hands were shaking when I picked up my phone again. With a signal, 911 called on the first try. I reported a road blockage, a suspicious vehicle, cones, and an attempted chase. I showed the video, the damaged rearview mirror, and the scratch on the side of the trailer. No drama, just method. The police officer confirmed that there had been reports of roadblocks with pickup trucks and makeshift signage in that area. They choose lone truckers, in the early morning hours, on secondary roads. They don't want to fight. They want time. They want you to open the door for some reason. At the checkpoint, while waiting for the patrol, I didn't just replay the scene in my head. I made a cold list of what could have gone wrong and what I did instinctively. I realized they chose a stretch where my truck would have little room to maneuver, and where any attempt to turn around would be slow. I also realized they had simple logistics. Cones, an improvised sign, a pickup truck as a roadblock, and someone in the dark with tools. It wasn't a large gang, but they were people used to exploiting fatigue. Later, when the police officer gave me general information, the pattern became clear. Sometimes they don't try to take the entire load. Sometimes they want the driver out of the cab, They want the keys, they want the documents, they want quick access. A truck driver alone, sleepy, sees an amber light and thinks of help or authority. Then he gets out, opens the door, and the rest happens quickly. The scam works because most people want to solve the problem right there, to continue their journey. I left there with a bad feeling that lasted for days. It wasn't fear of the road. It was anger at myself. I'm proud to call myself a professional, but that morning I acted like someone trying to beat the clock, not like someone taking care of their own life. And I learned something that nobody likes to admit. Road crime is silent. It doesn't announce itself. It only offers you a choice that seems convenient. In the end, the outcome was different. A broken rearview mirror, a scratch on the trailer, a lost night's sleep, and a scare that won't easily leave my mind. But I came out unscathed because the moment I understood it wasn't bad luck, I stopped acting like a victim and started acting like a driver. Since that night, I no longer take those economy-saving detours in the middle of the night in places with no signal. I'd rather arrive late than end up in a police report. The road doesn't forgive distractions, and a predator doesn't need a monster. It just needs someone tired enough to choose the wrong route. If you're enjoying these chilling stories, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any more terrifying tales to come. Now, get ready for another journey down dark and mysterious roads. The high beam flashed twice behind me. There was no way out, no shoulder, and I was too heavy to simply accelerate and disappear. I was on I-40, a long, dead stretch of Arizona, one of those that seem endless at dawn. Moonless sky, dry wind, and the white line shining just enough to hypnotize you if you let it. At that moment, I still thought it was just another truck driver asking to pass, or someone annoyed because I was keeping to the speed limit. I was wrong. I checked the mirrors. A dark, tall pickup truck with very bright headlights pressed against my bumper. Too close to be normal. The distance was so short I couldn't see the hood, only the glare of the headlights and the silhouette of the roof. There were no apparent brands, no company lights, just that aggressive, insistent headlight. I pressed the accelerator a little harder. The engine responded, but the load is unforgiving. I was towing a loaded trailer, a weight that forces you to think for 5 seconds before doing anything. The pickup truck kept up, as if it were part of my truck. It blinked again. The CB radio was on low. I tried a generic call just to test it. Whoever's behind the truck in kilometer 40, make some distance. Nothing, just hissing. The feeling wasn't fear yet. It was irritation and that professional alertness you develop over time, like a silent alarm in your chest. I'd seen it all. Drunk people, reckless people, crazy people wanting a race. But this had a pattern. It wasn't impulse. It was control. The headlights flashed again, and this time the pickup truck swerved to the left, as if it were going to pass. I thought, okay, go ahead. But it didn't pass. It stayed there alongside my trailer in my blind spot for about 3 seconds. Enough time for me not to see its cab properly. And then it went back and stuck again. In my mind, the first explanation was simple. An attempt to force me to stop for some reason. Maybe a problem with the tire, maybe an open door. This type of scam exists. The guy points to the trailer, gestures, makes you pull over. Then comes the rest. The problem is that I didn't see anyone gesturing. I didn't see any hands on the window. I didn't see anything, just headlights. I kept going. I kept both hands steady, a constant speed, my eyes alternating between the road and the mirrors. I wanted light, a gas station, a rest area with movement, anything that would take that scene out of their control. The next stretch had an exit, one of those wide ramps with a reflective sign warning, "Rest Area 1 mile." I never stop in an empty place at dawn. Never. But I also didn't want to drive indefinitely with someone tailgating me. And the entrance to the rest area, at least, would give me better lighting and space to maneuver. I've decided. I'm going to go in, but without turning off the truck. I'll just go in, turn around, and leave. If the pickup truck follows, I'll confirm it's not a coincidence. When I turned on the turn signal, the pickup truck flashed its headlights again. It wasn't an okay, it was a command. I entered the access ramp and felt the weight pulling. the trailer swaying slightly. The rest area emerged like a faint patch of yellow light in the middle of nowhere. It was large with ample parking, a few flickering streetlights, and a low bathroom building in the back. Almost empty. 2 cars in the far corner and a motorhome with its lights off. The pickup truck pulled up behind me. That's it. It wasn't a coincidence. I didn't stop at the parking spaces. I went straight to the turning area, keeping the truck moving slowly, as if I were just looking for a spot. My plan was simple. Make a loop, go back to the exit, and get onto the highway. If they tried to block me, I'd have room to maneuver. The pickup truck didn't come to my side. It stayed behind, but now with its low beams on as if it wanted to disappear. I took the wide turn. The rest area had an internal path that seemed to go around behind the building. When I passed near the bathroom, I saw something that didn't fit. A light-colored SUV parked without lights, almost touching the side of the building, in a spot where nobody parks. No visible license plate, windows too dark. My internal alarm went off. 2 vehicles, and none of them seemed like travelers. I continued the loop, already certain that I had fallen into a trap of my own choosing by going in there. The pickup truck, instead of following my path, accelerated and cut through an internal driveway, disappearing behind the building. That's when I understood the drawing. They were positioning themselves, not following me. I picked up the CB microphone again and tried to speak, even though I knew it wasn't a police radio. There's someone in the rest area of I-40, exit X, being followed by a truck. I need lights on the highway. Silence. Only hissing. I was almost at the exit when I saw the light-colored SUV turn on its headlights and start moving. It came slowly, aligning itself sideways as if it were going to cross the inside lane and block me. I didn't accelerate. Accelerating with weight on a curve is an invitation to lose control. I did the opposite. I slowed down, straightened the truck, and let the trailer continue on its path. If they wanted to block me, they would have to bet that I was going to brake. I wouldn't brake. The SUV hesitated for half a second. That half second saved my night. I kept the truck moving steadily and passed before it completely blocked the road. The SUV remained at an awkward angle, undecided whether to turn back or move forward. When I saw the exit, I felt a brief moment of relief. The highway was just a few meters away. The pickup truck reappeared. She emerged from behind the building like an animal waiting for the right moment. Now she was coming down the inner lane and threw herself in front of my truck, trying to cut me off as I exited, as if she wanted to force me to stop there before the highway. I had no room to maneuver. I only had one decision. Either I would slam on the brakes and become a stationary target, or I would keep moving and force them to retreat. I kept moving. The pickup truck swerved to the side at the last second, and I quickly saw 2 things for the first time. 2 men in the cab and something in the back seat that looked like a long bar or tool. It wasn't hunting. It wasn't a trip. It was work. I entered I-40. They came in too. But now I had a straight line, space, and most importantly, a rule I never break. When you have real suspicion, you don't try to solve it alone. You look for signs, cameras, toll booths, anything that creates witnesses. I maintained a steady speed and began searching for the next illuminated spot. I knew it could take several minutes. The desert swallows you up, and at night, the road becomes a corridor where anything can happen without anyone seeing. The pickup truck got stuck again, but this time without the high beams. They were calmer, more patient. This was worse. Nervous people make mistakes. Patient people plan. I took a deep breath and did something I hate doing, but it was the safest thing to do in that situation. I let the truck slow down very slowly as if I were losing power. It wasn't braking, it was a gradual decrease. This invites the pursuer to take the initiative. The pickup truck grew impatient and swerved to the left, trying to pass. I needed identification, license plate, brand, anything. When she pulled alongside, I kept my gaze in the convex mirror, trying to catch a rear angle. But they didn't pass. They stayed exactly where I couldn't see the license plate, as if they knew. It was in that second that I noticed the most terrifying detail of the night. The pickup truck had no license plate on the front. Where it should have been reflected, it was just empty black. And the back was dirty enough to hide that too. My throat felt dry. The idea wasn't to impose fines. It was to achieve invisibility. I knew that if I stopped, that invisibility would turn into total silence. I kept slowing down. The pickup truck finally moved slightly ahead and made a slight turn to the right, as if it were going to enter my lane. A psychological nudge. They wanted me to react. I didn't react. Instead, I turned on the hazard lights for 2 seconds and then off, as if I had malfunctioned. I wanted them to believe I was vulnerable but still in control. The pickup truck slowed down too, now positioning itself in front of me, and I saw the light-colored SUV emerging from behind, far away but coming fast. They were sandwiched together. That's when I stopped looking for a gas station and looked for something else. A spot where I could be seen from above. Camera signs, electronic panels. Any stretch closer to the city. I remembered a stretch with a weigh station and inspection area a few kilometers ahead. There aren't always people there, but there are almost always cameras, lights, and space. If I could get there, I could change the game. I kept the truck steady, showing no signs of desperation. The pickup truck in front swayed, trying to make me brake. The SUV behind began to close in. When I saw the weigh station sign in the distance, I almost smiled, but I didn't give in to that urge. I just changed my approach. Instead of staying in the main lane, I started to line up towards the checkpoint entrance, with my turn signal on early, like an obedient driver. The pickup truck did the same thing, trying to squeeze in alongside it. I stepped onto the ramp, and the access opened onto a courtyard with bright white lighting. Cameras on poles, painted stripes, a small booth, all empty but bright as day. The pickup truck hesitated. The SUV behind it did too. They didn't want light. They wanted shadow. I didn't stop. I drove slowly through the yard, making sure the truck was clearly visible, and picked up the phone with one hand, dialing 911. Not to call for a hero, just to make a record of it. When the call was completed, I began to narrate in a dry, detailed manner, with coordinates and directions, as if I were reading a report. The pickup truck turned around before I could even finish the first sentence. The SUV did the same, disappearing back onto the highway. I stood around the yard for another minute, waiting to see if they would come back. They didn't. It was only when I saw the empty road again that I felt my body tremble, as if my brain had saved the reaction for later. The operator asked for a description. I described what I had: a dark pickup truck with no visible license plate, 2 occupants, a light-colored SUV, and an attempted roadblock and arrest area. She asked if there had been a direct approach. I replied no, and that's what made me most uneasy, because a direct approach is impulsive. What happened to me was a matter of method. I continued my journey as the sun began to brighten the horizon. I arrived at my destination undamaged, with the seal intact, nothing apparently wrong. But before handing it over, I got out and examined the trailer as if looking for proof. That's when I found it. A thin, almost invisible scratch near the seal assembly. It wasn't a cut. It was a test mark, as if someone had touched it with a tool and given up. As if they were waiting for me to stop in a better place to finish the job. I stared at that mark for way too long. And the only thing I could think of was simple. I wasn't chosen because I was on that road. I was chosen because I entered that rest area. What if I had turned off the truck? I probably would never have gotten back to the highway. I've been driving a semi-truck long enough to learn that danger on the road almost never comes as a direct threat. It comes as a procedure. Cones aligned too closely, amber lights in just the right spot, a portable panel with a simple generic instruction manual. Fatigue loves this because someone else seems to be deciding for you. That early morning I was driving along a long, dry interstate highway, with crosswinds pushing the truck bed in short gusts. A load of palletized electronics, the seal checked before leaving the yard, the tracker active, delivery with a tight window and a fine that eats into the profit. I had already passed the ideal stopping point. I knew it. Even so, I gave myself the old excuse. Just one more stretch. I always hate that phrase after the night takes its toll. The fatigue wasn't dramatic, but it was treacherous. It doesn't knock you down. It rounds out your decisions. A few coffees a day, music low, routine mirror check, a light hand on the wheel. The stretch of road was too empty for that time of day, and that's never a good sign. Highways don't become completely deserted for no reason, and when they do, the reason is usually something you haven't seen yet. The radio started with an intermittent hissing sound. It would come on, disappear, then return. The pattern was what bothered me. Common interference is messy. It sounded like someone pressing and releasing a button without speaking, just marking their presence. I adjusted the squelch. It improved for a few seconds, then returned. I ignored it because ignoring it is more comfortable than admitting you're paying attention. A few kilometers later, I saw amber lights on the horizon, a portable electronic panel flashing a message, cones forming a gentle funnel to the right. On the shoulder, a pickup truck stopped with its flashing lights. From a distance, it looked like emergency work or a night patrol. The body obeys before the brain argues. I slowed down, without actually braking, and looked around for the rest of the operation. The rest didn't exist. There was no queue. No truck stopped ahead. No cars pulled over. No machinery. No support trucks. No signs indicating continuity. Real enforcement leaves a trail, a mess, a presence. It seemed like a stage setup just for me. Two people in generic reflective vests were positioned as agents. No pattern, no identification, nothing but bright stripes. One of them raised his arm in a broad, overly rehearsed gesture. The panel flashed a short phrase without any agency, number, or reference. They wanted me to leave the main flow and enter a short, dark, isolated side entrance. Exhaustion tried to decide for me. Experience argued with me. If it was a detour, why did it end in the dark? If it was an inspection, why wasn't there a marked patrol car? Why was the pickup truck too old for the equipment it was carrying? And why had the radio started crackling again just now? I maintained a low speed and complete control. When my headlights swept across the ground where the funnel narrowed, I saw the detail they hadn't disguised well. A dark strip across the exact spot, with an irregular metallic sheen. It wasn't debris. It was a trap. Rubber reinforced with screws designed to cause a slow puncture, without an explosion, just enough to force you to stop without attracting attention from afar. The scheme was complete. Pull me out of the flow of traffic, puncture my tire, leave me alone, and then show up with help. Braking suddenly would mean crashing. Accelerating abruptly would reveal my flight and increase the risk of an accident given my weight. I needed to pass as if I were obeying, without actually obeying. I signaled, partially aligned, but kept the truck out of the center of the funnel. I adjusted the trajectory millimeter by millimeter, letting the front pass outside the likely target. The front axle slid open with a dry crack. I waited for the sound of air escaping. Nothing. The front had gone. The second impact came on the rear axles. A short, scraping metal noise and a vibration shot up through the chassis. It didn't burst. It bit. A slow puncture, the kind that gives you minutes of false security before leaving you on the side of the road. At that moment, their behavior changed. One of the men quickly backed away, as if to retrieve something. The pickup truck's high beams shone directly into my windshield, attempting to blind me and force me to brake reflexively. This isn't improvisation. This is technique. I didn't give them what they wanted. I maintained a constant speed, without braking abruptly. I exited the bottleneck and returned to the main lane naturally, as if I were just correcting my position. I passed the dashboard and read the entire message. Inspection ahead. Follow cones. That's all. No agency, no identification, no evidence. For a few seconds, I thought I had escaped. A well-executed strike doesn't end when you don't fall. It changes shape. Shortly after, a car appeared in the rearview mirror. A light vehicle, low beams, it approached quickly and stayed too long in my blind spot. It wasn't haste. It was reading. Confirming the license plate, type of truck, seal pattern, driver's behavior. I felt my mouth go dry, not from fear but from recognition. That was a team. Then came a faint hum above the noise of the wind. I leaned my face into the windshield and saw a point of light flashing green, keeping pace with me, too high to be a lamppost, too low to be a star. Drone. He didn't need to attack. He just needed to keep going. If I stopped because of the slow pace, they would know where. If I went into an isolated exit, they would already be positioned. The trick now was patience. And patience is for people who have done this before. I needed to break the chain. I discreetly activated the emergency monitoring button on my cell phone to record the location and time. No conversation, just recording. Then I made a short call on the radio informing them of the area and mentioning a suspicious operation further back. No story, no drama. Presence. Noise. If anyone was listening, they would have information. If they were listening, they would know I wasn't alone in the silence. I made a decision that would hurt any responsible truck driver. I didn't pull over to the shoulder. Even with a punctured tire, I agreed to drive to a well-lit and busy area. Stopping there would have meant accepting their plan. The car behind me alternated its distance as if testing my reaction. The drone maintained its altitude and position, always slightly ahead and above, as if it wanted to mark the path. I ignored the first exit. I ignored the second. Each kilometer seemed longer because I felt the vibration of the tire like a clock ticking against me. When the third exit appeared, I recognized the sign. It was a larger service area with a wide yard and a light tower. Even in the early morning, there's always someone there. Truck drivers, buses, delivery cars. I signaled early, normally, without rushing, so as not to look like I was fleeing. I went in and didn't go straight to the pump. I drove around the yard and parked under the brightest light, where the cameras would capture the entire truck, front and sides. The drone tried to follow, but the intense lighting and metal structures broke the reference point. The green dot wavered, lost altitude, and disappeared. The car that was following me drove straight past without turning. That detail was the final proof. Con artists don't go where there are cameras and witnesses. They prefer the dark. I got out calmly, doors locked, flashlight in hand. The thick bolt was there on the tire, stuck across the groove, leaking slowly. I took photos up close and from a distance noted the time, photographed the seal and put the object in a bag. No heroics involved, just proof. While I was waiting at the tire shop, one detail bothered me, and it wasn't the screw. It was the instruction on the dashboard. Inspection ahead. Follow cones. It was too generic a message for such a well-planned scam. It seemed like a stock phrase, as if they wanted me to remember it later. This alerted me to a second layer. I stayed in the car, engine running, watching the parking lot. A dark sedan pulled in slowly, made a short turn, and stopped some distance away near an old truck. Headlights off, engine running. It wasn't a gas station customer. It was someone waiting. I had no proof, but I had instincts trained in the wee hours of the morning. My hand went to my cell phone again, not to make a call, but to get the screen ready with the tracking system's central system. The tire repair shop arrived, changed the tire, and I breathed a sigh of relief as if the night had finally ended. That's when I realized what they really wanted. A man appeared out of nowhere from the shadows of the canopy, walking towards my cabin wearing a reflective vest, similar to those used on highways. He didn't look like a gas station attendant. He had a controlled hurry, the posture of someone feigning authority. He pointed to the side of my cargo box and gestured for me to get out, as if there was something wrong with the seal. The kind of bait that lures even the most careful driver, because nobody wants trouble with sealed cargo. I didn't get out. I lowered the window just enough to speak without opening the door. I asked from a distance what it was. He replied in an irritated tone as if I were interrupting. He said he had seen a violation, that he needed to check the seal number, that it would be quick. The trick was good. If I got out, I'd be out of the cab. If I went back, I'd lose sight of what was ahead. And if I touched the seal, any mark would become an excuse. The trap wasn't the tire. It was getting me out of the driver's seat. I kept my voice firm and short. I said that any communication would be with headquarters on the phone and with the highway patrol, and that I wouldn't get out of the car for anyone. I turned on the hazard lights, switched on the interior light, and pointed my cell phone at him as if I were filming. I didn't need to actually film. I needed him to believe that I was. He froze for a second, a minimal amount of time, but enough for me to see the anger pass across his face. He took 2 steps back, turned his body, and disappeared towards the dark sedan. The car's headlights came on and it sped out of the parking lot, without stopping at any gas station, without stopping at anything. I stopped for another minute, just to make sure no one was in a hurry. Then I left the gas station and headed back onto the interstate as the sun began to brighten the horizon. The road seemed innocent again, as if nothing had happened. But the feeling wasn't relief. It was cold anger. They didn't want to rob me by force. They wanted to push me through a sequence of small decisions, each one seeming reasonable. Obey cones. Stop for a slow puncture. Accept help. Go down to check the seal. Each step constructed to seem normal. I arrived at my destination hours later with the seal intact and the screw safely stored. I wrote a report with the location, photos, time, and described the panel and the cone funnel. I wanted it to become a documented event, not just a bar story. But the part that struck me the most wasn't the chase or the drone or the fake vest. It was how easily the early morning hours try to make you choose the easiest path. The path that seems obedient. The path that takes you out of control. Ever since that night, whenever I hear someone say just one more bit, I remember the amber light, the funnel of cones, and the green dot flashing above the windshield. And I remember what truly saved me. It wasn't strength. It wasn't luck. It was the decision not to stray from the path I chose and not to stop at the place someone else chose for me.